They actually had the Ruadia scene. I thought they were going to skip the Ruadia scene. And we got to see Bodygotti. My gosh. What is up, guys? Welcome back. Happy Mushoku Sundays, everybody. Episode 4 of Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation Season 2 just dropped, and I have to say, really solid adaptation. It really does feel like they're not rushing things anymore. I mean, they pretty much covered pretty much everything in this segment without really skipping anything. It looked good for the most part. The only issue that I really had was the faces being off model quite a bit, but other than that, everything worked well. They did a really good job of covering all this stuff. There is some issues that they sort of created a long time ago that they're now having to sit in, but I'll get into that stuff. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. My usual pre-video stuff here, I have right up to volume 12. So this is from the perspective of somebody that has actually read this content here. I won't get into spoilers of anything beyond this. I just do analysis of the episode itself, as well as kind of insert things that have been skipped and they're probably not going to get into later on. Additionally, I checked the broadcast from Japan. Nothing was censored in this episode, so there you go. Even though I thought they were censoring the whole thing with Elinalise not moving. But yeah, let's jump into it. The opening scene of this episode is the Red Worm Straggler. Now, it doesn't really emphasize here, but Rudius and Soldat's party and several other parties are actually going out to kill the Straggler. Typically, they kind of mentioned it before, I think, in the anime adaptation. These Stragglers, these red worms, they're like, you don't touch them when they're in packs. These things are too powerful in packs. But every now and then a red worm will become a straggler when they get separated from the pack. And this typically happens because they fall or something. I think Rudius at some point points out they're really dumb. So they'll sometimes get separated from the pack and they'll land. And if they land on the surface where they don't have a cliff or something to jump off of, they can't fly back up. So there's a little bit issue in this adaptation where they show it actually fly in. No, if it was able to fly, it'd be gone. The fact that it's a straggler is typically because it's on the ground and it can't find a place to pretty much jump off of. But they kind of point out here in the novel, it usually takes about 40 people to take down these red worms. These are party killers. You do have some people trying to make a name for themselves and make some really good money because there's so much materials in these things that you can make a fortune. So they may want to try with a lower party, but you typically make 40 people. And they took forever to try to get a group, and they end up going with 21 people. Soldat's party, Rudius, and a few other groups. But yes, they were here to find that red worm, and then they seen the Luster Grizzlies, and they were running from the red worm. That's what the Luster Grizzlies were running from. And it was kind of in the cloud the Grizzlies were creating. But yeah, great shots in this fight itself. I don't remember Rudius running across the top of the red worm, but this is cool. It looks cool. Rudius getting all crazy and shooting the crap out of this thing. It pretty much all plays out the same way. Kind of getting it trapped inside of this quagmire, and then firing a barrage of stone cannons. Really cool little segment. Rudius looking really, really cool. I even like the whole pillar when he first was doing the lookout. They pulled that off really well, kind of getting him way up there, seeing everything below him, giving kind of a lookout for everybody. It was really cool. But yes, after Soldat tries to recruit Rudius to join Step Leader, he ends up going to the bar, and that's when we have the scene of Elinalise showing up. Finally, Elinalise showing up. I have to emphasize here, I think one of the biggest joys that I've found reading the novel series is every scene with Elinalise is always hilarious. And I really felt like the moment that we had Elinalise meet Rudius, it went out the roof. Because Rudius, when he's not in a depressed state, he's very snarky. And he's very quick-witted because he kind of has a mind of somebody that has experienced a lot of things technically in his previous life. And Elinalise also has lived a long time because she's an elf. And so the wittiness between the two of them is just pure gold. And we kind of experience a lot of that in this whole scene where you have Rudius is trying to throw off Elinalise. Even though he has ED and he has this issue that he's facing, he's still trying to throw her off. Like, oh, let's see if I can throw it. She keeps getting on to me and she's giving that sense that she wants me. Well, let me see if I can throw her off. And she just feeds right into it and it just completely messes him up. It's like trying to make it backfire and it just backfires on you again. The chemistry is super good and they portrayed it really well in the scene. But yes, Elinalise is here to tell Rudius that they found Zenith and that Roxy is going down to meet Paul. It's so funny because all this stuff that she's divulging to him is just like, okay, cool, it's registering. But then the moment she mentions, oh yeah, by the way, Roxy, he's like, oh, you know my master? He gets super excited. Like this is the only thing that he really cares about. But yes, this is kind of one of those things that for anime onlys, you probably won't even notice. But for those that have read the novel, you'll know that they changed something quite significant here. Let's take the way back machine for the anime onlys. Way back here when Lilia gave the pendant to Rudius. In the anime, Lilia says that it's from Sylphie. Well, in the novel, she never gets a chance to tell him that. And so he just assumes that it's Lilia's. Lilia made this for me. She's my maid. So right here, when Elinalise is like, oh, look, this pendant, who made this for you? Is it an elf? And he's like, no, Lilia made it. She's not an elf. So it's kind of one of those little weird changes they did in the anime. It's not significant, but it is kind of an interesting change. And yes, right here, Elinalise, it's on her hilt, the emblem itself. But it sort of just kind of gives this little tie-in between the two of them. Like, okay, why is this the same? Is this an emblem that the elves created or something like that? But it does kind of open the door for Elinalise. She's like, oh, well, we have something in common. And she's getting all over on him. And then at some point goes, wait, I can't do this because I don't want to be the daughter-in-law of Paul. And I can't betray Roxy because at this point she assumes Roxy loves Rudius. But yeah, now that Rudius knows that they're going down to find Zenith, he obviously wants to join them because this is the only reason he's up there is to find Zenith. So that this whole mission for being in the north is pretty much gone at this point. But they can't leave yet because winter's coming, and it's going to take a little while for the winter storm to pass, and they can travel down to Big Red. And this is where Rudius finds out something really special about Elinalise. She's a slut. She just loves sleeping with everybody. I really did think there was a lot of censorship happening here because obviously you see Elinalise and she's just sitting there and you're hearing noises, but she's not moving. And so I assume that maybe the global version had it where she's just sitting there as a still, which doesn't make sense to the sound. But I checked the Japanese broadcast and nothing in this episode was censored. So everything you've seen in the global version was the same in Japan. So I'm assuming that probably with the Blu-ray release, that's when things will actually move. Drug. But at least I'm happy they didn't skip the Ruadius scene. They didn't skip the Ruadius. I got a huge kick out of that when I read that, and also did that in the Mushoku Monday. Ruadius. She's great. But there's a couple of things that are kind of established here. This entire segment here is just kind of an emphasis on, one, who Elinalise is as a person, and two, what Rudius' experience. Probably the only thing that's somewhat not emphasized in the anime is that Rudius this entire time is struggling. You obviously see that in the anime. He is very, very distraught by this. He feels empty inside. He feels lonely, and everybody around him is having fun, and he can't experience it. Elinalise is going around and sleeping with everybody in Soldat's party. She's literally sleeping with everybody. He kind of notes in the novel that every time one of them sleeps with her, they come to him and go, look, I'm sorry I slept with her, because they all think that he's with Elinalise, like she's his girlfriend. And so they apologize to him, but then tell him how great it was. But there's a little bit of an oddity here in the idea that even with Soldat, it seems like she's paying. So it seems like that might help the situation because he's afraid that she's going to destroy everything. She's getting with all these guys in this party, and they're going to start fighting over her, and it's going to destroy the party. But it seems like she's doing something that's preventing them from breaking up. One of the things that he assumes is maybe it's because she's paying them. So it's kind of a prostitution thing. But at the same time, it doesn't seem like that's the whole story. And I'll get a little bit more detail about this whole situation because I think they're going to skip something here. But yeah, the run-in with Soldat was hilarious in the novels, and they pretty much nailed it in the anime. Just that face of like, oh crap, Rudius. Because again, Soldat thinks that Rudius is with Elinalise, and he just took her from him. But he still partook in it. It's one of those aspects of like, why are you apologizing when you thought this thing, and you still did it? She cannot be resisted. Elinalise cannot be resisted. One of the interesting thing here is he's kind of sitting here and he's seeing Elinalise with Soldat. It's frustrating the hell out of him. He talks about how Elinalise's presence is sort of frustrating, like she's causing this problem for him, and he thinks that she's going to destroy Soldat's party. But additionally, he's sort of frustrated with Elinalise because he found out that, yes, let's go way back. When Roxy first discovered where Zenith was, Elinalise could have been the one to go down there to tell Paul. But no, she left it to Roxy to have to do that because she didn't want to see Paul. And so Rudius is a little frustrated here, like, I could be seeing Roxy in front of me right now. If it weren't for the fact that she was so selfish that she sent Roxy down there, Roxy could have came here. Which, yes, was kind of frustrating for me when I was reading that segment, the whole thing, because this is kind of one of those things that sort of skipped over with the anime adaptation. And I'll get into that in detail later on because they sort of have a scene at the very end regarding that. But yes, he can't go down to Begret because he gets a letter that tells him about the University of Magic. An invitation from the Vice Principal Genius. And everything here is pretty much covered in the letter. It's an invitation to come there as a special student. Special students don't even have to attend classes. They have to attend a homeroom every now and then, but they don't have to attend classes. They can do their research. They can use all their facilities. One thing they didn't really mention in the anime is that the desire here is for you to come there, do a research, and if your research, is fruitful, and you give that rights of the research to the university or the Magician's Guild, they will actually make you a member of the Magician's Guild. So yes, while they do talk about this later on, this idea that this is sort of a way that they kind of reach out and bring in magnificent people so that it's like free advertisement for this university. If they can bring in nobles, if they can bring in exceptional people that have a name for themselves, it's advertisement for the university. But there is a benefit that if they find something in their research as a special student, they can essentially acquire that research and it betters them. And this is where we have a conflict in Rudius, because he's like, well, I don't even know if this is a scam or not, which that's totally Rudius. Every time something comes up that sounds beneficial, he goes, well, is it a scam? He always, like the man god, every time he met the man god, is like he's a scammer. He's like those door-to-door salesmen. He talks, he tickles your ears just to get something out of you. So he assumes it's going to be a scam, but at the same time, no, they found Zenith. I got to go down and help them find Zenith. He wants to help Paul find Zenith. Yes, then we get the visit from the man god. My gosh, the animators went goofy with the man god this time around. Man god's always been goofy. He is an absolute goofball. But it really did feel like they just kind of amped it up with this, having the butt shaking, having the rising up in the light and everything, giving him this option that will save him from his ED. It was really, they went ham on him. But yeah, they pretty much covered everything here with the man god. It's just this idea of, okay, well, you sure you want to go down to the beggarate? You're going to regret this. And this is something that's going to be obviously sticking in Rudius' head. He doesn't like that word. But additionally, you don't want to go see Roxy right now, do you? You're terrible. I mean, you're in bad shape. You got rejected by Edis, by Sarah. You haven't improved yourself. You haven't gotten better as a magician. You keep swinging that sword, but you never get better there. You're a washout. Go to the University of Magic instead. That's his proclaim. Go to the University of Magic, study the displacement incident, and you'll fix your ED. But that's really the sad thing here is, again, emphasizing how much Rudius is struggling right now because he can't perform. Not just that he can't perform. It's not that he needs to have relationships. He does. He's given it up, though. The problem is that he's hearing and seeing. This is the worst aspect of having Elinalise here right now, is that she shows up right after this thing starts happening to him, and he can't perform. And this is a woman that all these men are loving. She is so good in bed, and she just leaves every man happy. It's hurting him because everybody else is having fun with their little bands, and he can't with his. So he's struggling here. This is literally killing him inside because he can't perform. He's lonely. He's empty inside. And now the man god says, if you go here, you'll fix this. It's nothing else. It's not about don't go here because you'll have regret. It's not about go here and study a displacement incident. It's fix your ED. Fix your manhood. That's the thing that sticks out into Rudius' mind. That's his goal. Like, that's kind of why it seems like they portrayed that aspect of the man god kind of floating up. It's that, oh, I can fix this? Are you serious? I can get away from this emptiness that I'm feeling constantly? But it doesn't end there. Because the moment he wakes up, what does he see? Elinalise right in front of him. He explains the idea that it's so cold at night in these areas that if she doesn't have somebody to bed, she's just going to lay in his bed with him and they keep warm together. But that's enough. He's hurting inside and seeing, I want this right here in front of me. And she's wrapping herself around him and he's feeling nothing. It's killing him inside. And so sure enough, yeah, I'm going to the university. If this will fix this, I'll go there. Forget everything else. Everything else, go away. This right here, the here and now that I'm hurting because of, that's important. I need this right now. I need to fix this. I want to get rid of this emptiness. And it's sad because they had such a faraway shot of this in the anime that they don't really portray this. But yeah, his eyes are welling up in tears. This is killing him. He feels inferior. But yes, he parts ways with Tsundere Soldat. I got a huge kick out of this reading this. He has this whole Tsundere thing of like, it's not like I helped you for anything. You don't owe me thanks. If anything, I made a ton of money off of you. Which, yes, technically, especially with like the whole Red Worm, like they made a fortune off of that. Even though Rudius didn't really need to give them all shares, he did. But yeah, cut montage, Rudius traveling all the way to the University of Magic and a bunch of people in the University of Magic, which we'll get into later on, but still super excited to see all these characters. Cannot wait to see them. But one additional little thing at the very end. A big guy in a room with a bunch of Onis. Did not expect them to show that. That was super surprising. What anime onlys won't know is that, unfortunately, they skipped a lot of stuff around Elinalise, Roxy, and their departure. This is going way back here when Roxy first saved Kishirika from the bartender, and Kishirika said, hey, do you want something? I'll give you anything, assuming to give an eye, but then Roxy says, no, I just want to know where Rudius and his family is. And then Kishirika used her eye to look for everybody, and eventually was trying to find Zenith, found where she's roughly at, but not most of the details. Well, unfortunately, the anime kind of skipped to Roxy parting ways with Elinalise. But what the anime didn't show was that Roxy, upon learning this, goes back to her room, tells Talhan and Elinalise, and suddenly, out of nowhere, this big burly guy shows up. His name's Barigari. He busts in, Kishirika's there with him, and there he's doing finger guns. We find out that Elinalise technically slept with him, but additionally, they kind of set up a plan to split up. Because Elinalise did not want to see Paul, Roxy, Talhan, and Kishirika went south to go tell Paul. Elinalise and Barigari went to go tell Rudius. Now you're thinking, how the hell did she get there so fast? Well, Barigari has connections. Barigari knows the guy of this port they were at, which I think was the furthest northwest port of the Demon Continent. They had connections with the sea folk, because for those who don't know, the reason why everybody has to kind of go around this big round route is because you can't just get in a ship and go across the ocean. The sea folk own it. So using these connections, Barigari and Elinalise is able to go by the Divine Continent on a ship, and that saves them a huge amount of time. But at some point along the trip, Barigari just jumps off the ship. and I'm not going to get into details on this because I'm not sure if they're going to cover some of this stuff. He just jumps off the ship. He just goes like, I want to go over here and do this thing. And then Elinalise has to go the rest of the way herself. So that's why Elinalise shows up alone. And that's how she got there so fast. But yes, that guy celebrating with everybody was Barigari. And I love this dude. I think he's one of my favorite characters in the entire series. I get a kick out of him. His little laugh. Bah! He's got a laugh. I had so much fun doing our analysis with that character. Because every time I got him on the screen, I just had to do the blah-ha-ha-has that he does. He is just equally as goofy as Kishirika. But yes, something that I was kind of putting off until the end of this video to get into minor details with is what they sort of skipped regarding Elinalise. And they might cover it a little bit the next episode, but it seems like they've kind of skipped it over because Rudius arrived at the Magic Academy. But during Rudius' travels to the Magic Academy, he ends up discovering that there's something wrong with Elinalise. She suddenly just gets pale in the face. She's got tremors going on. There's like something dangerous in her eyes. And he realized at this point that she apparently has a curse. A curse that requires her to sleep with men on a regular basis. Which she does claim, I love sex, so even if I didn't have this curse, I'd still be doing the same thing. But it's still like this aspect of like, wait, so this is something that's forced upon her. Like if she doesn't do this routinely, periodically, she will suddenly just, it looks like she's dying. Like she is going to die. And so Rudius, in a panic, and again, unfortunately, because he can't perform, they're out in the middle of nowhere. He's like casting detoxification and just kind of groping her and hoping that it fixes it. So it does give like a reasoning for why Elinalise is apparently just sleeping with everybody. Apparently she has to do this. But again, they may mention in passing in the next episode. I can see an area where they might be able to do that. But it does give some context as to why we see an entire episode of her just with every guy. Just some side notes. They did kind of skip a little bit of details about Elinalise herself. Rudius experiences that she's an incredible tank. That even though she does go around and sleep with a bunch of men, it does seem like she's not condescending to other women. She's pretty much like an older sister, which we kind of experienced that a little bit with Roxy and giving her advice and stuff about Rudius. And she also seems to know boundaries because she doesn't sleep with anybody that has partners. And yes, we got to see good boy Zenoba. I cannot wait to see Zenoba. Got to see Linnea and Presena, which is super exciting as well. I think a lot of that stuff around that is just bonkers, and I cannot wait for it. But yes, good stuff. Cannot wait for the next episode. But that's my thoughts on episode 4 of Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, the second season, episode 4. Hope you guys enjoyed my impressions. If you did, make sure that like button down below. Comment. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, I'll be doing Mushoku Sundays, and I also do Mushoku Mondays. If you're reading the novel series, I'm at like volume 12, which is pretty much at the end of the second season, as everybody's predicting. So if you're up to that point, check those out. I do a premiere every single Monday. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate everybody does, and I'll take care.